Hey everybody, how are you doing? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. I hope you are having a fantastic day. Welcome back to the channel, and you know what we're talking about today. I'm supposed to be on a bit of a break from doing YouTube and making videos. However, Nintendo is not letting me rest, as earlier today they released a new very short but very substantial teaser for Metroid Dread with so much crazy good stuff that we have to discuss it. So I'm a bit limited in time this morning to make this video before I have to actually start working for the day, but there's quite a bit of great stuff to go over in this trailer. It's very short, like I said, about 30 seconds, but it's doubling down on a lot of the Chozo stuff, which, of course, you guys know me. That is my favorite thing as far as the lore of Metroid, and I've been really excited seeing that Metroid Dread is going to further some of the lore and the connection of the Chozo and Samus. But there's also a lot of X-parasite stuff going on here as well, which in my last Metroid video, I did kind of theorize on that, as Nintendo has been dropping hints about the X-parasite's overall role in the story, and we see more of that stuff here, some flashbacks to Samus's memories, crazy good stuff, so let's get into it. Of course, before we jump any deeper into the Metroid Dread topic today, I like to remind you guys I'm always trying to grow the channel here on Rule of Two Review. I upload several videos every single week. I cover all things Nintendo. I discuss every single little thing about Metroid possible, and I discuss all things gaming. So as you watch this video, if you seem to like what I'm doing and what you hear, then I hope you will consider subscribing to the channel. So where do I begin with this teaser? There is so much going on in this short little 30 seconds that it's almost overwhelming. Big picture stuff. Obviously, I love this. This is a mix of some imagery and cutscenes and visuals that we've already seen, as well as plenty of new stuff, and even some stuff that kind of recontextualizes a lot of the footage and cutscenes that they've already released, which is one of the coolest things about it. I think the main concept that I would use to describe what this teaser is showing us is this is really showing that Metroid Dread is doubling down as being the most immediate sequel and successor to the events of Metroid Fusion that it could possibly be, almost making it seem as if very little to no time has passed between Fusion and Dread. Now, we don't know that. There still could be a story spin that says it's been several months or even several years, but we see the exact same ship that she's seen flying in Metroid Fusion at the beginning of this, so that kind of makes it feel like it's a little bit kind of one-to-one going from Fusion into Dread. And like I said, there is that quick flashback scene where it seems as though Samus has a quick memory of several recent events that are all taken from the events of Metroid Fusion. And I have some specific theories on what's going on with that as well that we'll get into later in this video when we come to that part. Most immediately, though, I want to focus on the Chozo stuff, partly because, as you know, it's my favorite part to the Metroid lore, but also because I feel like the first half of this short teaser is really all about Samus, the Chozo, and her connection to them, and giving us some glimpse into how the Chozo is going to be relevant to Metroid Dread, whereas the back half seems to have to do with Metroid Fusion, the SAX, and her relationship to the X-parasite. So I really see this 30 seconds as half and half. The first half is about the Chozo, the second half is about the X-parasite. Now, the first part about the Chozo I want to discuss is where we basically see Samus herself come across that sort of hieroglyphic wall of drawings and carvings that feature Chozo and power suits and all of this different stuff, kind of detailing some of the history of the Chozo race. We've seen what has basically been a still image of that wall before, but here we see it recontextualized, like I mentioned in the beginning, where we see Samus literally come across it and run up to it. So the previous image we've seen of that wall wasn't just an image of the wall, it was showing us that Samus herself is staring at that wall and kind of soaking in or taking in the information and the imagery she is seeing. What could this mean? What I hope this means is that as she is sent to ZDR and slowly starts to discover and explore the planet, that eventually she comes across the Chozo ruins and statues that we've already seen in some of the footage released, and even comes across this wall and sees this imagery and realizes, hey, this place seems to have also been a home to my people, the Chozo people, the Chozo race, those who raised me after my parents were killed. And so what I'm hoping is that she has this kind of revelation while exploring the planet ZDR that the Chozo race used to live here or used to inhabit this planet. And that could be something she sees as a good thing, as a bad thing, maybe kind of a mix of both, depending on what she knows about the fate of the Chozo race. And so I love having new context added to this hieroglyphic wall. That's kind of what I use to describe this imagery, right? Is just a wall of what looks like hieroglyphics. And I'm hoping that she sees this wall and realizes, man, there's some Chozo stuff going on here, so I'm more invested in Planet ZDR. Then, of course, we come to the big daddy-o, the most important parts of this trailer to me, which is another shot of some living Chozo. We don't know who this Chozo is. I don't even want to necessarily call them he or she or male or female. We don't really know any of that stuff about any of the Chozo that we've seen in these trailers so far. Obviously, the first thing we think of is the original trailer that showed us the living Chozo sitting at some sort of console or a cockpit. Now we see another image of a living Chozo staring at us, the viewer, and giving a sort of courteous bow to the camera. And while it could be a safe assumption that the Chozo in this trailer is the same living Chozo as in the first trailer, to be fair, we don't really know that. It's some dots that we can connect, and there is a great chance that it is the same Chozo, of course. But just because they seem to be wearing the same garb doesn't 100% mean that it's the same Chozo. I mean, anything is at play here, you guys, so anyone who's trying to say that it's officially 100% this or that, I think is maybe being a little dishonest, or maybe even just fooling themselves, or allowing themselves to be fooled by the trailers, I should say. Because we don't know that this is the same Chozo. If it's the same Chozo, the question comes into play, is this the evil Chozo from the Samus Returns memories, or is this a different Chozo? Is this a flashback, or is this a present-time living Chozo? All of these questions apply if we're looking at the same Chozo, person in both of these trailers, and we don't yet know this answer. Now, of course, if you've been following my videos and my theories since Metroid Dread was revealed, you know that I am probably the only Metroid fan on the planet that doesn't want the living Chozo in Metroid Dread to be the evil Chozo from the Samus Returns memories. Not because I hate the idea of that guy or girl coming back and being an antagonist in Metroid Dread. I do like that idea and would love to see that play out. However, I am more interested in Samus coming across a good Chozo, because I feel like we would be seeing the first time she actually meets a good Chozo since she was a little girl and eventually left them to join the GFS, the Galactic Federation, become a bounty hunter before setting off on her own, and all of these different things that we've seen play out over the course of the existing games. I want her to have thought that the Chozo were all extinct and dead, and then come across a living Chozo and be overcome with joy and emotion to find a good Chozo and say, oh my god, I thought you were dead, I thought you were gone, I haven't seen one of you in so long, you are my people, it feels great to see you again, Hi, how are you doing? That's what I want. That's the Samus and Chozo interaction that is way more interesting and powerful to me than for her to be like, oh, you're a bad guy, I have to kill you, so let's just fight now. Sure, that's great, and I want to see that happen, but more important to me would be for this Chozo to be a good guy. If you look at the imagery and the clip of this Chozo, it appears to be standing in front of one of the warp points that we've seen, or what seems to be the Adam AI robot, that kind of, that sort of cubed, wavy sort of light imagery that's behind this Chozo. We've seen that on the AI computer already. Now, we also can't overlook the fact that this game seems to show some quick flashes of what looks to be new renders of a lot of the imagery and scenes that we saw from the Chozo memories in Metroid Samus Returns. And so I feel like this is kind of the bridging point to Samus on planet ZDR, coming across Chozo imagery, maybe even coming across and meeting a living Chozo, and whatever that means, good or bad, I feel like she's going to come across and actually interact with some kind of living Chozo on planet ZDR in this game. And then the trailer starts to flash to these new images of the Samus Returns memories. And of course, those memories show us that the Chozo created Metroids, they were fighting X-parasite, they were defeating the X-parasite. It seems as though a Chozo or some group of Chozo went bad, perhaps by being infected by X-parasite, we don't yet know, and killed a bunch of the living Chozo and took over as these evil kind of guys. And so we see some of those clips in the Samus Returns kind of memory images that we see redone, and that's when the trailer starts to then move on to some of the X-parasite stuff. Now, the X-parasite stuff, boy oh boy, is there a lot to unpack in a very short amount of time. Really, the focus on the X-parasite stuff and the connection to Metroid Fusion is literally like a fraction of 1 second long. And it's this clip that I think a lot of people have been focusing on, where Samus seems to flash through a bunch of what I think are memories of her most recent adventure, that of course being Metroid Fusion, which is where we see the SAX and some other kind of contextualizing of the events of that game. And there's actually quite a bit to pick apart when you look through that stuff. Now, I've gone ahead and captured an image of every single image that we see in that quick clip where Samus comes across the Chozo hieroglyphic wall, stares at it, soaks it in, and then appears to sort of have some memories that are inspired by her viewing that wall. And so let's quickly look through every single image that flashes through her head in that moment. The first one we see is just an image of like a scan of a Metroid. I believe that this exact image is something captured from the moment that they actually extract Metroid DNA and create the Metroid vaccine that's given to her kind of during the opening prologue to Metroid Fusion. The very next image we see is basically a really cool shot of the beginning of Metroid Fusion. Again, we're still in that prologue before the beginning of that game, where she basically comes across what's known as a Hornode. Yes, that's the name of the creature that she's shooting. It's a Hornode. And this thing, when she kills it in the beginning of Metroid Fusion, reveals the X-parasite that then attacks Samus and sends her on her whole journey of being infected by the X-parasite, getting the Metroid vaccine, her suit changes, and then she goes throughout the journey of Metroid Fusion. Right after that is exactly this scene, where basically this is the X-parasite that came out of that Hornode, and then of course infects her, creating the Fusion suit. And then again, another shot from the beginning of Fusion, where we're seeing her infected by the X before they start to try to save her and pull the suit apart. And then of course she awakens in the Metroid Fusion suit. So before we go to this last clip, all of these initial shots, to me, what I'm speculating here is all of this stuff, every single one of these shots, is probably part of the kind of series recap that we know is going to be at the beginning of Metroid Dread. Nintendo and Sakamoto confirmed that it's going to be easy to step in and play Metroid Dread as your first game, because they're going to give us an opening sort of recap of the franchise. And this exact image of her in the Fusion suit has already been shown as part of that explanation, so I feel that every single one of these shots that is recounting the events of the prologue of Fusion are going to be part of that series recap that touches on the Fusion storyline. And so then, of course, the last thing she sees, which everyone has been hyper-focused on, is this awesome HD image of the SAX itself. And it's very cool to see. You know, this shot, I should say, was also seen in Metroid Fusion. The first time we see the SAX, and she looks at the camera, and the camera zooms in on her face, and you see this horribly demented version of Samus with these crazy glowing eyes. And here is, you know, what I think is the series recap version of the SAX itself. And now the very last things we see, I think, are some of the most important in this trailer, and I haven't seen anyone else really talking about this. But after they give us these images from the series recap and the Metroid Fusion recap that are inserted in this trailer as though it's a quick flash of Samus having memories of all of this stuff happening to her, it then shows this close-up of her in the present time in Metroid Dread, still staring at this hieroglyphic Chozo wall. We see her eye open up as if she's kind of infused with this moment of fear, or dare I say, dread. And then we see this awesome shot of her hand as she seems to be overcome with this glowing aura and this glowing energy. And her hand is twisting as though maybe she's kind of... a couple of things could be happening with this shot of her hand. She might be kind of clenching it in anger, and to the point where she's almost driven to the point of, I'm gonna pursue this threat and destroy it because I'm sick of it being around. Or it could be her being overtaken with something that's hurting her or making her feel fear. I mean, it could be doing either one of those things, something good or something bad. but I think what it might also be saying is that she may still be feeling the effects of being infected with the X-parasite. Now, to me, that whole concept is very cool, and it builds on what I talked about in my last Metroid theory video about the X-parasite playing a role in this game, even though it seems like Nintendo is hinting that the X-parasite, as we first knew it, has actually been destroyed. Maybe what we're seeing is similar to my theory about Samus maybe being the last Metroid, which I still am sticking to. Maybe we're also going to see that she's the last of the X-parasite, because she's been infused with the Metroid DNA vaccine and the X-parasite itself, and so maybe these two sort of, polar opposite entities within her ended up sort of battling, but then also merging together to more fully create something within Samus that, again, as I've said in previous videos, makes her DNA literally a combination of human, of Chozo, of Metroid, and of X. All four of these things seem to be a part of Samus. And when we see this last shot in this trailer, to me as a fan, what I'm interpreting is she's being overtaken with whatever this energy is within her that I think is very much partly made up of X-parasite energy. And again, we don't know if it's doing something good or something bad to her. Is she harnessing it the way like Goku harnesses his Saiyan energy to become Super Saiyan? Or is it attacking her and making her feel pain or fear or dread? It could be doing either one of those, and we don't yet have these answers, but I think that this little teaser is showing us the first glimpses at what's actually happening to Samus, the character and the woman, in the game Metroid Dread. And so, yeah, as a Metroid nerd, I'm kind of geeking out. This 30 seconds is some of the best 30 seconds we've seen about anything Metroid Dread since this game was revealed. And I have to applaud Nintendo and Mercury Steam with how they're marketing this game, continuing to promote it and remind us that it's coming, and also the way they're doling out information between the trailers they've released, today's teaser, and the Metroid Dread report. Like, a lot of it's very subtle, but it's there. They're dropping some serious breadcrumbs, and for those of us who are big Metroid nerds and really steeped in the lore and the sequence of events and the history of Samus and the Chozo and the X and the Metroids and all this stuff, I mean, it's absolutely fascinating, and I think that they're doing a great job for those of us who are willing to look for these clues. So, this is my current interpretation of what this 30 seconds showed us. What do you think about my breakdown? Do you agree with my assessment of it being half Chozo, half X, kind of showing some of Samus's memories? Maybe these screenshots are part of the series recap at the beginning of Dread. All of that stuff. Do you agree with my theories, or do you have something else completely? And if so, I want to hear about it in the comments. And with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.